Whenever one thinks of spirituality, somehow the logical, scientific and reasoning part of one's brain tends to take a back seat, because most of us have been brought up and conditioned to believe that spirituality and science have nothing in common. But our guest today believes that spirituality and science have a lot in common. Please welcome Sant Rajinder Singh Ji Maharaj, well-known spiritual leader.
It's very nice to be here on the program, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful connection between science and spirituality as we go forward today.
It's a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us, Maharaji, today. I'd like to begin with a question, what I've been leading up to. Is spirituality blind faith, or is there a role of science, logic and reason in it?
You know, I believe spirituality is very scientific, because when we think about science, science is unraveling the truth. So science puts up an experiment, and then it has a theory before it has an experiment, and based on the results of whatever it propagates, it say either the theory was correct or was wrong. And so when we think about spirituality, spirituality is coming up with the same thing. It says the basic principle of life is that this creation came from God, and God is the creator. We who find ourselves in the human being are souls, and science, just like science proves things, spiritual scientists, if you call the saints and mystics as spiritual scientists, they've been trying to prove over the years through their experimentation that the soul is a part of God and God can be experienced. And so just like in science we go to a laboratory and we do the test based on whatever the inputs are, and then we tabulate the results, in spirituality the human body becomes the laboratory.
Okay.
We are experimenting with our soul, which we do through meditative practices, and there are many kind of forms of meditation in which we can experience the soul. And as we experience the soul, we connect with what is called the holy light and sound of God, or the Naam, or the Shabd, or the holy word. And as we connect with that power within, which is within each one of us, those who connect with it know that it's there. And so when the results, as they get tabulated, which comes in the ratings of the great saints and mystics over the years, they all talked about flight of the soul. And so as the soul flies in the regions beyond the physical, those who have that experience then solidify the belief that that connection is really there. So just like in science, if we do the experiment the same way, we get the same results. But if we change what a professor has told us and we put our 2 cents in, we won't get the same results. So similarly in spirituality, when we perform the practices the way they're supposed to, the results are definite and we get them all the time.
Okay. I think as you said, Maharaji, somewhere it's about experiencing, and in the real life we only think about tangible. So these being intangible, we tend to...
Yeah, because we just feel like, can I hold on to it? Can I experience through my senses? Because we live at the level of our senses. You know, our predominant sense is a sense of sight. And it is said that 83% of what a human being does depends on the sense of sight. 14% of what we do on a daily basis works through a sense of hearing, and only 3% of our activities are focused on a sense of smell, taste and touch. So as we go through this world, we're always taught that if we see something, it has to be correct. If I heard it myself, then it's correct. And we only live at the level of our senses. We forget that there are worlds beyond this world. You know, when you read the scriptures or the writings of the great saints, they all talk about regions beyond the physical, and they talk about mechanisms by which we can get there, and they talk about their experiences. And so spirituality deals with the flight of the soul. It deals with those experiences which are beyond what we experience through our physical senses.
Maharaji, beyond the soul, beyond the physical, can it happen also in this life, or does it have to happen in the next?
You know, it can definitely happen in this life. As we meditate, meditation is a process by which we take our attention away from the world outside and focus it within ourselves. And as we go into this worlds within, then our sensory currents collect, and they collect here what is called the Shiv Netra, the Dasma Dwar, the single or the third eye. And as the sensory currents collect there, with help and guidance, we can soar into the regions within, and we can experience what the saints have talked about, the light and sound. You know, Mirabai, who many people think was just a pujaran of Lord Krishna. She, in later on in life, when she met Sant Ravidas Ji Maharaj, she wrote a very beautiful verse. She said, Meera man mani, surat se alasmani. Ke Meera believed in the inner regions when her soul went on the inner journey. So, unless we experience it, it's only hearsay. But those who've experienced it, they talk about beauty in the past. Like Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj has written very beautifully. He said, Khak se taba kya kashan, humne to jab kiya safar, ish mila kadam kadam, hus mila nazar nazar. So if we translate that into English, it would be, when I traveled from the earth earthy to the heavenlies, I found love at every step and beauty in every glance. So this is the journey of love, this is the journey of beauty, and each and every one of us can go on the journey. It's not only reserved for a few.
So is there a connection? That means because faith is so critical to all this, is that why faith is called blind? Not because it is blind, but because it tells you stop believing only in what you see?
No, blind faith means like we are believing in something without experiencing it. We read it someplace, someone has told us about it, and so we blindly are following it. Faith comes when we experience something for ourselves. So to me, faith can only come when you've had an experience of something. Let's say, as a child, you tell a child that don't put your finger in the fire. You can tell the child 1 time, twice, 3 times, and so the child might think that it's like that, but once the child puts the finger in the fire, they know it, that it's going to burn them. So they've experienced it. So unless we experience something, our faith in what someone says or what we've read is always superficial. But once we experience something, let's say you sit in silence and experience some lights within, or you hear what is called the Anhar Shabd, the celestial music. Now no one's taking a torch and putting in your eyes, and no one's like forcing you, and you're not into like what is called guided meditation, because the guided meditation can guide you into something. So we don't believe in that. We believe meditation is like it needs to be revealed by itself. The word Khuda. Khuda means one who comes of his own accord. So meditation needs to happen by itself. Now if you have it happen to you, then you know it's there, but otherwise it's only hearsay. So the experience is very important.
True. महाराज जी, रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी में इतनी छोटी छोटी टेंशन है, स्ट्रेस है, जीवन तो जीना है, तो इसको कैसे हम ऐसे ला सकते हैं एक राह पे जो जी भी ले और अच्छी तरह जी ले?
देखो, हम सब की जिंदगी में जरूर ऐसे समय आएंगे जबकि कोई तकलीफ बढ़ जाएगी या कोई ऐसी चीज होगी कि हमारे को फाइनेंशियल प्रॉब्लम हो गई है, तो तकलीफें तो जिंदगी का हिस्सा हैं। एक महापुरुष ने कहा, तो कोई तो तन मन दुखी, कोई चित उदास, एक ना एक दुख सबन को सुखी संत का दास। ये तुलसी साहब जी महाराज ने कहा। हर एक की जिंदगी में कोई ना कोई दुख है। अब उन्होंने क्यों कहा कि सुखी संत का दास? कि संतों से हमें क्या मिलता है कि जब उनके अंग संग जाते हैं, उनके इन्वायरमेंट में जाते हैं, तो जैसे अगर हम कोई गर्म चीज के पास होंगे हमें गर्माइश आएगी जी, ठंडी चीज के पास होंगे हमें ठंड लगेगी। तो जब हम संत महापुरुषों की संगत में जाते हैं तो जो उनका ऑरा है, जो उनकी प्रेजेंस है, जो हमें प्रभु की ओर लेके जाती है, तो उस प्रेजेंस में जाकर हमारा ध्यान दिन जो डे टू डे एक्टिविटीज उनसे हट जाता है और असलियत की ओर जाना शुरू कर देता है। और जैसे जैसे हम असलियत की ओर कदम बढ़ाते हैं तो जो हमारा एंगल ऑफ विजन, जो हमारा नजरिया है, वो बदल जाता है। अगर हम सोचेंगे कि ये तकलीफ हमें क्यों आ गई, कैसे आ गई, तो हम उससे कभी भी निकल नहीं पाएंगे। अगर हम ये सोचेंगे कि ये तकलीफ शायद आ गई हमारे कर्मों करके, बट ये टल जाएगी। वो जो 4 इंग्लिश के वर्ड हैं, दिस टू शैल पास, वो बहुत जरूरी है। तो अगर हमें ये यकीन हो जाए कि जो भी समय आ रहा है वो जरूर टल जाएगा, तो हम उस समय में से बड़ी खुशी से निकल जाते हैं। तो वो तब होगा जब हमें कोई प्रभु में यकीन होगा, और प्रभु में यकीन तब होगा जब कोई उनका अनुभव होगा। अगर अनुभव ही नहीं हुआ तो यकीन क्या होगा? इसीलिए कहा जाता है कि अनुभव पिता परमेश्वर का करना सबसे जरूरी है। हजूर बाबा सावन सिंह जी महाराज फरमाया करते थे कि जो मैं कहता हूँ उसमें भी बिलीव मत करो, तुम अपने आप अनुभव करो। कि अगर आपको अंदर में अनुभव होता है तब आप राइट डायरेक्शन में जा रहे हैं। तो ये जो संतमत का रास्ता है, जो मेडिटेशन का रास्ता है, बहुत बिलीव करता है कि हम खुद अनुभव करें कि प्रभु की सत्ता है, हम प्रभु की रोशनी, प्रभु की श्रुति ध्वनि के साथ जुड़ सकते हैं। और जब खुद अनुभव होता है तो फिर अपने आप फेथ इंसान का बनना शुरू हो जाता है।
तो एक आम आदमी को कैसे पता चलता है कि अब मेरा समय है, नाउ इज माई टाइम टू रियलाइज और टू एक्सपीरियंस, क्योंकि ये दुविधा सी रहती है मन में।
हम लोग सब डिफरेंट स्टेजेस ऑफ लाइफ में से गुजरते हैं, और कई बार जब हम बहुत कुछ अपने आप करके भी इस स्टेज पे पहुंच जाते हैं कि हमारे करने के बावजूद भी हमें लगता नहीं कि कुछ हो रहा है जो हम चाहते हैं, तो तब हम सोचना शुरू कर देते हैं कि शायद कुछ और चीज़ है। समटाइम्स ये होता है कि हमारे आसपास कोई नज़दीकी फिजिकली पैस अवे कर गया, उनकी मौत हो गई, तो इंसान सोचता है कि ये इंसान जिसको हम गले से लगाते थे, जो हमको रोज़ मिलते थे, अभी लेटे हुए हैं। अब देखने में तो वो बिल्कुल वैसे ही लग रहे हैं, ना उनकी बॉडी छोटी हुई ना श्रिंक हुआ, तो इंसान सोचना शुरू करता है कि इनमें से क्या चला गया कि ना ये देख पा रहे हैं, ना ये सुन पा रहे हैं, ना ये कुछ बोल पा रहे हैं और कुछ कर नहीं पा रहे। तब हमारे अंदर ख्याल उठने शुरू हो जाते हैं कि हम कौन हैं, हम कहाँ से आए हैं, ये इंसान कहाँ चला गया, हम भी कहाँ पे जाएंगे। और जब कई बारी जब कोई इस किस्म की स्टेट होती है तो हमारा ध्यान असलियत की ओर बढ़ना शुरू होता है, तब हम सवाल उठाने शुरू कर देते हैं, और जब हम सवाल उठाते हैं तभी हम रूहानियत या स्पिरिचुअलिटी के रास्ते पर बढ़ने शुरू हो जाते हैं। आपने
IIT मद्रास से अपनी इंजीनियरिंग करी, फिर USA से आपने अपना मास्टर्स इन टेलीकम्युनिकेशन किया, तो ये सब करते करते आपको मालूम था कि एक दिन स्पिरिचुअल पाथ पे इतना स्ट्रांगली जाएंगे आप?
नहीं, एज अ स्टूडेंट तो जब मैं पढ़ता था मेरा ध्यान रूहानियत की ओर था जी। मगर उस समय जैसे कि होता है पढ़ाई की तरफ बड़ा जोर था, तो हाई स्कूल के बाद IIT मद्रास में मैंने 5 साल लगाए और फिर कुछ एजुकेशन बाहर भी की। बस साथ साथ संत कृपाल सिंह जी महाराज और संत दर्शन सिंह जी महाराज की दया में से मेरा ध्यान रूहानियत के रास्ते पर था। मैं अपने घर में देखता था कि मेरे पेरेंट्स, माय मदर एंड फादर, दोनों सुबह उठ के अभ्यास पे बैठते थे, तो क्योंकि वो बैठते थे तो आस्ते आस्ते मुझसे भी आदत पड़ गई। तो ये बहुत ज़रूरी है आजकल के समय में कि जो चीज़ें हम अपने बच्चों को सिखाना चाहते हैं वो हम खुद भी करें, क्योंकि हमारे घर में एटमॉस्फेयर ऐसा था जिसमें कि मेडिटेशन करना इम्पोर्टेंट था, तो वो शुरू से ही कुछ आदत उस किस्म की पड़ गई, और क्योंकि आदत पड़ गई फिर उसमें रस आना शुरू हो गया। और समय के साथ जैसे जैसे वहाँ पढ़ने के बाद 20 साल मैंने कई 2-3 बड़ी बड़ी कंपनी जो दुनिया की हैं उनमें काम भी किया, रिसर्च भी किया, कई नई चीज़ें भी डेवलप की, बट मेरा क्योंकि ध्यान रूहानियत की ओर था तो उसी में मुझे ज़्यादा शौक रहा और उसी में मुझे ज़्यादा आनंद आना शुरू हो गया।
वंडरफुल। महाराज जी, बात करेंगे, आपने बच्चों की बात करी, यंग लोगों की बात करी कि कैसे ये हमारी जिंदगी का एक इतना हिस्सा बने कि बच्चे सोचे कि ये भी एक बहुत अहम चीज़ है, रास्ता है जिस पे हमें चलना है। ये सब बातें करेंगे। अभी लेते हैं एक छोटा सा कमर्शियल ब्रेक। स्टे विद अस। Welcome back. We are in conversation with Sant Rajinder Singh Ji Maharaj, well known and widely respected spiritual leader. Maharaj Ji, before we move on to young children, what are your own personal spiritual goals?
You know, my goal always has been to be able to connect with God. I've been practicing since I was young. Also, what has given me happiness, I'd like to share with others. So I travel very extensively all around the globe, talking about meditation, talking about sitting in silence, talking about spirituality, because I believe that deep within every religion is what is called an esoteric side. You know, every religion has 2 sides to it. One is the esoteric side and one is the exoteric side. See, the exoteric side, or the outer side of a faith, deals with rites and rituals, and those are all different in all faiths. But the esoteric side deals with the spirit, the soul, and the journeys of the soul, which is the same in all the faiths. And so I've been focusing on the esoteric side of all faiths, and I believe that irrespective of wherever we are born, irrespective of whatever faith we belong to, we all can know God, and that's the message that I'm trying to put out.
Okay. You spoke about silence, stilling ourselves, और कहीं ना कहीं हम साइलेंस से घबराते हैं, तो ये कैसे हम अपने आप में लाएं कि साइलेंस मित्र है, दुश्मन नहीं?
हम लोग सोचते हैं कि अगर चुपचाप होगी तो शायद वहाँ सन्नाटे में कुछ खराबी होगी, पर हम भूल जाते हैं कि जहाँ पर हलचल होती है वहाँ पर आदमी कुछ सीख नहीं सकता. You know, let's say 2 people are talking, or you're in a crowd and more than 2 people are there. If one person's talking, another's talking, another's talking, another's talking, you don't gain anything. The only one who gains in a conversation is one who's listening. So to listen, the environment needs to be in silence. And so within us is what is called the holy word or the Naam or the Shabd. And for us to connect with it, we need to silence our mind. Our mind is the one which is keeping us away from God. It's the one which engrosses us in the world. So we need to learn mechanisms by which we can still the mind so that we are able to connect with the divine power within. And this is why to me, like, meditation is like listening to God, and praying is like talking to God. We all pray.
Okay.
See, when we pray, what happens? We're praying, let me pass the exam, let me get married, let me get a job, let me have kids, let my kids do well. So we're always asking for something for ourselves.
True.
So prayer to me is one way going from us to God, whereas meditation is when we sit to meditate, we're opening ourselves, so we're ready to listen, and it says, oh Lord, give me whatever you think is best for me. And so that state is one that we need to be in, because if we're always asking, then where's the time to receive something? So the reception can only happen when there's some silence.
How do we train children to appreciate and be in silence?
We need to be good examples to the kids. There's a very interesting story out of life, Mahatma Gandhi. It is said that a lady brought a son and asked Mahatma Gandhi to tell the son not to eat any sugar. So Mahatma Gandhi told the lady to come back in a few days. And so when she came back, she asked him again to tell the son not to eat any sugar. And so Gandhiji just used these words and said, "Beta, don't eat any sugar." And so the lady was a little upset. She said, if you waited for so many days just to tell him this, I thought you'll be giving him a big lecture. Then why didn't you do the same thing before? And he said, on that day I was eating sugar myself. And so we have to set an example for the kids. The kids are very astute. They know more from what they see than what they are taught. Okay? The classical story about someone coming to the house and knocking and asking a child, is your dad at home? And he asks his dad, and dad said, no, I'm not at home. And he goes and says, oh, my dad is saying he's not at home. So kids are very clean and they're very open. So we need to present to them an environment which is loving, which is caring. And children are like a blank page, and adults can write whatever they want on it. So as parents and as teachers, it's a great responsibility as we deal with the children. But if we keep our environment well, if we keep our environment spiritual, then we'll find that the children will be growing, who will be getting better and better to understand what this life is all about. We put so much emphasis on outer education, like the languages and the maths and the sciences and the social studies, but not enough is going into the spiritual arena. So I believe if in our school systems we can put in a period of spirituality, not religion but spirituality, ethical values, spiritual values, sitting in silence, whether you call it meditation or praying with attention or just sitting in silence, I think it will benefit the children. We in our mission have about 15 schools in which we have done that, and we are finding that the results are tremendous, and the kids are much more composed than they were before they came to the schools.
Okay. There is a difference in the before and after, clear difference.
We find a clear difference, and we are trying to tabulate them, because the schools, the first school was open about 12 years ago.
Okay.
And so we are tabulating the data, and we have one period in each one of the classes from the 1st till the 12th in which we are focusing on ethical virtues, on sitting in silence, and we're trying to tabulate the results to see how the effects are. But so far I've been told that the results have been very, very positive.
Wonderful. Maharaji, what is the role of fear in our lives?
Fear comes to us because of the unknown. And we always fear something because we don't know how it will play out in our life. So fear comes because we don't have enough faith that things will be all well. Okay? One of the biggest fear of life is the fear of death. Because when we sleep at night, we don't know if we'll be getting up in the morning or not. And so that fear of death brings all kinds of other fears in our life. If we don't understand the culture of someone, we fear them. If we don't understand the faith of someone, we fear them. And so what helps us is, first, if we have faith in God, that there's an anchor which is helping support us. and second, a better understanding of the environment and not jumping to conclusions, because we generally don't take the time to really understand something else. If we were to take the time to understand another person, another culture, another faith, another religion, then the fear would go away. We'll find like basically we are all one and the same. But since we dress differently, we speak differently, our cultures are, when our rituals are different, we just feel that I don't know what the other person is thinking or what they'll come up with. So for us to be fearless, we need to get within ourselves and realize that the support of God is with us, and this is why those who have that experience, fear goes away from their system. You know, one of the things as we pass through life is to realize that we're not the physical body. What gives us life is our soul, and that soul is a part of God. So that soul has unlimited wisdom, number one, because it's a part of God, it's of the drop of the same ocean as God. And so it has, once we attain that statehood, then we have unlimited wisdom. It also is fearless, because once it realizes it's a part of God, what is there to fear for? If God is with you, there's nothing to fear. True. It also is connected with each other. That realization comes in as we meditate, that we're all connected, because as we experience the light of God within, we realize that the same light is in someone else also. And once we realize that what we experience is experienced by others too, then we get close to them. It also makes us be in a state where we know that we're immortal, that the body might deteriorate, but the soul is everlasting. And so once we realize the soul is everlasting, then this physical death is just change of a vesture, so that fear goes away. And so the realization of who we are as soul also puts us in a state of bliss and joy, because when we realize we are part of God, then nothing but happiness and joy. So it brings all of these things into our life, that life goes fearlessly towards our goal.
You spoke of common consciousness. I think that it's been backed by science with that genome theory also. Yeah, the genome project, which was finished about 5-6 years ago. They took the genes of human beings, and they said that between 20,000, 25,000 genes, and they took of all specimens from all over the globe, and they came up with something very interesting. They said that more than 99.9% of the genes of all human beings were the same. What was different was less than 0.1%. And this accounted for our features, the color of skins, our length and our weight and other things. And so unfortunately we just focus on the less than 0.1%, and we're not focusing on the 99.9%, which is one and the same. And the saints are saying, go within, don't live on the outer surface. But the outer surface might be different, because deep within is our soul. You know, Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj would say, he would say, gale laga lo har insaan ko ke apna hai, chalo to raaguzaro mein baante hue pyar. And it's only when we realize that we are connecting to God that we can be in that state where we embrace everyone, and we can pass through life living a life of love. And so that realization only comes in as we go within. Maharaji, is there life beyond?
There's definitely life beyond this life. You know, we live in a very scientific age. We want proof for everything. So about I would say 35-40 years ago, a new field came up. It's called the field of near-death experiences. The first book that came out of the subject was by Dr. Raymond Moody, and this came out in 1976. And since then many other books have come out on the subject. These were a compilation of experiences of people who were either in a trauma or on a surgical table, and all of a sudden they found an existence beyond their body. They could hover over their body in the operating room. They could see the doctors and nurses work very frantically on the body. They could also hear what was being said. And not only were they there and watching and hearing everything, they talked about going through the walls of the operating room. They talked about meeting their family members or seeing them who were frantically waiting there. They also, many talked about being like hundreds of miles away, because when they talked about who they met and what they were wearing and what they were doing, it all corroborated. But there was a commonality in all of their experiences, and the commonality was that they said they all ended up in a region of light. There was so much light there that they'd never seen that before, but it wasn't hot or scorching. Like these lights are pretty strong, so they produce a lot of heat. But that light was a very loving light where they were. And many said that they met a being of light. Some related to the being of light as founder of the religions, but many said they met a being of light, and many even talked about having a life review, where some of the important aspects of their life were presented to them. And not only could they see, they could also feel the reactions of their actions. So let's say they did something good for someone, they could feel how much happiness they brought to that person. But if they did something bad to someone, they could feel the pain. But irrespective of whether they had brought happiness or pain to someone else, they all said they were engulfed by the being of light. They all said they never found this much love in their lives, and they didn't want to come back. But since it wasn't their time to go, they were sent back into the body, and they started talking about it. So in the beginning, like in the early 70s, people thought they're kooky, something wrong with them.
Right.
You know,
right.
and so doctors won't listen to them. But Dr. Raymond Moody was the first one who collected these experiences and came out with that book, Life After Life. And now there are over 200 books on the subject, and there are many researchers who have been. There's one of the most popular one is called Dr. Melvin Morse.
Okay.
And Dr. Melvin Morse has a book called Transformed by the Light, which he put out a few years ago, and that talked about the transformation that happened in the life of these people who had this experience. It's 10 years down the line. And he said they all became more spiritual, they were going to the places of worship more. Many changed their jobs to be in those jobs which are like community helping, like hospitals or community healing, and it had a tremendous effect on them. But we definitely can experience the beyond without having to go through the trauma. That's what meditation is all about.
Okay.